Hello, parents. Mike Allen with the Diocese of Lexington and the Family Life Office. We are having another one of these conversations that really has been motivated by your responses to a parenting survey about some of these difficulties and challenges that you're facing in the midst of this pandemic and all that comes with it. Parenting, as we know, is a tough enough vocation as it is. When you throw in a lockdown and a pandemic and all the rest, it increases the challenges, but also the blessings. And so I'm really very thankful that we're going to have a conversation together today with Dr. Lesley Iwinski, who is a retired family physician, mother of three. She passionately shares her faith through her love for empowering families, a redirecting children's behavior instructor since 2004, and also the founder of a growing peaceful families, a local LLC. She loves seeing parents' faces light up when they experience these aha moments. She believes as a physician that physical and emotional health are influenced by the well-being of close relationships, and being a guide for parents provides them an opportunity to not only create emotionally healthy, but also physically healthy families. And although retired, she is still teaching good medicine in her unique way. She lives here in Lexington with her husband, Chip, of 35 years. He's with Shriners Hospital in Lexington, and their dog, Blue. She's blessed to share their home with her delightful mother-in-law as well. And her daughters are married, and her son will soon finish college, and she's a parishioner at the Cathedral of Christ the King. So hello, Lesley.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for having me. I'm really been looking forward to this.
Yes, absolutely. Well, so you really have an interesting story in terms of, you were practicing physician and also a parent, which again, both of those vocations are difficult enough on their own, and throw them together, it provides a unique, let's say, opportunities for growth. I got sense in reading a little bit about of your bio, this redirecting children's behavior curriculum had an impact on you as a parent and your vocations.
It really did. So I was already, gone through my training. I was board certified family physician, and I was in practice, and I had a little daughter. And growing up, I knew I wanted to be a very kind and loving. And my parents were good parents, but they did use spanking and punishments as part of their toolbox. Those were in their toolbox. And I thought, I really don't want to use those. I'm just going to use this thing I've heard called timeout. So with my first daughter, timeout, she really needed it because, it's pretty easy to follow young children's leads and just kind of, pull them aside or redirect them, whatever. I think only a few times did she go into timeout, but it was really pretty. She had a very similar temperament to mine. We kind of meshed. And I had my second daughter, and it's not only, that there's another child in the house, because there's only one of you and two of them. So you're trying to split between the two of them. But her temperament was very different from mine, and she is fabulous. She's turned into a wonderful adult. But I think because of our temperament mismatch, I had a lot more challenges. My patience was tested a lot more. I found myself yelling. I found myself, timeout for her was like, okay. She goes sit in the chair. I'm like, this is not effective. As time went on, I had one of my patients that had 5 kids, and she would come into the office, and she was unique in that when her children came in, they were just centered. I mean, they didn't tear my office apart. They didn't pull things off the walls. They didn't jump off the table. And I told her one day, I said, it's such a delight when you come into the office, with you or your children. It's just so different. And she said, well, it wasn't always like this. I took a course that changed my life. I'm going to start teaching it. And I said, well, good for you. Isn't that great?
Wow.
So fast forward a few years, and I called her and I said, are you still teaching parenting class? Because I think I need it. So I signed up, and Chip watched the kids, and I would go to the class, and I would come back and tell them everything I learned. So we kind of went through it that way. And it got me started in a whole different way of seeing things. It just, I would try these new tools, and I would see this marvelous effect, and I'm like, wow, this really works. And so I was still excited. So I still, in that newbie stage of being more informed about parenting, I thought I had everything I needed to make my kids do what I wanted. And I was so excited. So it took me about 10 years to figure out that I am not in control of them. I'm a positive influence for them. And it's important for me to set boundaries for them and to listen to their happiness or unhappiness about the boundaries I've set, to keep them safe, and most of all, to take care of myself. Because if I don't have anything in my cup, I don't have anything to give but, negativity and punishment and just misery. So when I went to get my instructor training in 2004, because I thought, what a great way to start a parenting group in Lexington, because I was very lonely for other parents to talk to and to share ideas, and not just be a group that commiserated about how unhappy we were and how everything was going
Right.
wrong, which I just couldn't take. I did not need that. So the instructor, I shared with her one of my struggles, which was, what would Jesus do? That was the big thing at the time. We've done bracelets and bumper stickers, and
Oh yeah.
what would Jesus do? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I just don't know. There's no clear cut, like, follow my lead gospel stories. It's just, I'm waiting. I'm in aisle 5 at Kroger. The wheels are coming off, and I'm just having to leave my cart and go. And what would Jesus do? And she just looked at me very calmly, and she said, well, whatever he would have done, he would have come from love.
Mm.
And I was like,
Wow.
that was a big, big shift for me, because I was all worried about assembling all these tools so I could make sure everything worked the way I wanted to. And what I came very gradually to understand, and still hoping to understand more and implement more, is it's not so much what I do, it's how I am and what I bring to the situation that makes the difference. So if I can bring my calm to my children's fight, I am much more effective at helping them navigate through that. I think we're going to talk about that a little bit today.
Sure.
If I can bring that instead of bring my anger and my frustration, you guys are driving me nuts, and take it outside, I don't want to hear it. It was a foundational shift. And it really tied in with my Catholic faith, which is trying to live Christ within us and share Christ within us with others. Like, boy, if I could just remember that, then I would be able to be how Jesus would be. So not very successful, but probably at least half the time, maybe. I'll have to find out, later on. But
Yeah, that's right.
I've tried to approach it with that in mind, and to be forgiving with myself when I mess up. Instead of beating myself up, this is terrible, and I've done my share of that. Like, why am I even a parenting instructor? I have no idea what I'm doing, and then recognize that is what it is. It's discouragement.
Well, and that's,
Dust yourself up and you get back up.
I would imagine that what makes you even more effective, or anybody more effective in their teaching, is the humility to say that I don't have all the answers, but let's walk through this together. I mean, that, and that sounds, that shines through in even your own testimony there about your experience. And also, like what you said about the whole issue of control, because that's something that we find out early as parents, that how little control we truly have, and especially as our children age. And that's a hard, almost interior death that you have to die to realize, love by its very nature gives up control.
Yes. And it is very hard. This is your flesh and blood. And,
Sure.
And just try to remember, like, how God approaches us, how God is always there for us. He's always loving us. When we turn around to come back and say we've made a mistake, he's not there glaring at us. He's saying, there you are. I knew you were coming back. And to bring that to parenting, because, the only people we can really control are ourselves. I am only in control of me. And even then, sometimes that's a struggle. So if I'm only in control of me, then I have the opportunity to really work on bringing good things to the situation, and to be able to influence in that way, and provide limits. And there's just so much almost parallels with the spiritual life, the interior life, in terms of, like you said, letting go, surrender, presence. I mean, just being a loving waiting spot, a safe spot for children to struggle. I mean, it's so familiar, in terms of the spiritual life, that I think I love the way it all just kind of knits together in this beautiful whole that's transcendent over the time of history. So I really appreciate that. Most parents are just not that excited about that kind of thing, but I love that. I love how it all meshes together, and we get to be, for our children, a representative of who God is. because when they're little, they think we are God. I mean, they can be in another room doing something. We go, put down that such and such. And they're like, how do they know? They must be God. So it's and if we look at our own journeys, because even as parents, we don't have all the answers. We're not done growing. We're not like have kids and suddenly we're done. We are growing alongside our kids. And part of that growth involves struggle and pain and healing from old wounds that sometimes trigger us into behaviors that, we really don't want to do, but we find ourselves falling into over and over again. Being able to see where that hurt comes from and be able to sit with that hurt and that presence, with God, with a friend, with a counselor, with a priest or minister. It's really important in healing. So you get to bring your healing journey alongside, with your child. So we're never done growing as long as we're open to the opportunity.
And that's, when, as you shared your experience, finding people that you could share with who can sometimes we can't see ourselves. We're in the middle of parenting and, we're in the midst of it. Sometimes that view from the outside, from somebody who cares about us and is invested in us, it is something that can maybe help us, give us another perspective beyond the immediacy of the moment.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think it helps because, parents are great. Every one of them is doing the best they can, whether it's effective or not, is relevant. They are really trying the best they can with what they have. And, being able to recognize that and to name their strengths and to empathize with their struggles, and yet to be able to share a comforting presence. Somehow there's something about having somebody just listen to you that is very, very healing in and of itself, but then to help them uncover their own wisdom in a sense. Like we have this intuitive knowledge about how to love, but it's kind of been clouded out by all the stuff that's piled on us over a lifetime. So to be able to help parents, discover within themselves, it's not like, here's I got this great thing here, take it, I'm going to give it to you, I'm going to sell it to you. It's like, you have this, let me just help you figure out what it is and how to use it, and give you a couple ideas that you can use and you'll feel good about, and your confidence will build. And that's the most, I get goosebumps just thinking about it. That's the most exciting thing to me, is to see a parent take the ball and just go off. It's just a wonderful thing to see. And you don't go waltzing off into the sunset with a happily ever after. You go off with a sense of confidence and a sense of yourself, and you are ready to be supported and to reach out for help when you need it, and to support others along the way, because what ideas you have are really going to benefit the whole community as well. So finding those communities of parents that can do that is, I think, really, really helpful for folks. I wish our whole world did this for every parent. Yes. It's a hard job.
One on the survey that we took of parents in the diocese, there were several issues that emerged in their responses, and one of those was what they called, or what we termed, oppositional and defiant behavior. I think over 30% of parents that are dealing with this, particularly in the middle of this pandemic, and just close quarters and struggles over probably technology and all sorts of things. You, in our exchange, you talked about these being, in a sense, power struggles. What do you mean by that?
Well, there's certainly no doubt that there is such a thing as oppositional defiant disorder. I've met children with it, and I know it can be very, very challenging. Parents often feel desperate when they have a child with that. But I don't think it's as common as people think. It's kind of become like a nice label to slap on a kid who isn't doing what we want. Yes. Which in its more common garden variety form is a power struggle. So you just think about how powerless we parents feel right now when we're stuck at home, or even if we're going to work, our kids are stuck at home, or however we're doing this. And it is extremely, it shakes your ground. It just shakes everything. And all you want is to have some control over something. And all you did was you asked your kid to pick up their shoes, and they won't do it. Dang it, can't you just pick up your shoes? You can't, maybe. Well, you're ODD. Well, here's the thing. human beings need power. They need a sense of power and control over themselves. They need to feel a sense of agency, like I can manage things, myself. I don't need people telling me what to do all the time. Just imagine, how do you feel when people tell you what to do? Those are the people you probably avoid because you don't want to hear it. So think about children being just smaller versions and less developed versions of humans, but having every right and dignity of human beings, which includes the need to be loved, the need to be valued, to feel like they belong, to feel like they're powerful, and to just be curious and be kids, to experiment with things and play with things and learn things. So those needs are just as real for them as they are for us. So if you look at it from the child's perspective, they need to know that they have a sense of control over themselves. So does that mean you let them run ramshot over the house? No, it doesn't mean that. It means where you can, give your children an opportunity to use this power that they need to exercise in a way that's appropriate. So instead of pick up your shoes and getting into a power struggle over it, you could say, I notice your shoes are in the hallway. And if you're connected with them, they might go, oh God, whoops, and they'll put them away, done, okay? They may say, oh, I'm busy right now. I'll say, okay, well, that's fine. When do you think you'd like to pick them up, before dinner or right after dinner? They get to pick after dinner. Excellent. It's okay with you if I remind you? Yes. Okay. That's cooperation. So, and explosion avoided. And bonus, the child gets to use his power in a way that's helpful, that builds his own sense of confidence. I mean, it's nice for a child to feel confident in themselves, like I can do stuff. I can honor my agreements. And they really, 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 no matter how it feels in the moment, they really want to please you. At their very core, that you are their world. You are their source of everything that they need, which can feel overwhelming at times, but you really are that person. And to just, remember that. So, one of the simplest ways to deal with power struggles is literally to give choices. When they're really little, especially when they're 4 or younger, they may not have any ideas. Or you could say, well, what time would you like to do it by? And when we leave things really loose, it's hard for kids to meet those expectations. So if we have an expectation and agreement that we're going to do something by a certain time, whether it's a clock time or a just daily schedule kind of time, that gives your child a chance to respond in a responsible way and build their own sense of being reliable and how good that feels.
So I can imagine a parent listening to this saying, okay, and then what if they still don't do it? Is there a place for consequences in this approach?
I love this question. Okay, so my understanding for the first 10 years that I taught the class is that consequences are in my back pocket. So when I really lose control of things, I'm going to whip out the consequence. And that's good. So clearly my mind wasn't quite, you evolve over time. That wasn't it. So the question becomes for me, from my child's perspective, why is it that they don't want to cooperate and they don't want to do it? So, going back to what children need, which is to be loved and valued and feel like belonging, that's the quality of the relationship we have, and that's the connection you have with them. So if you are connected with your child, they will more than likely be more cooperative because they feel their little inner cup is filled with knowing that you love them, that you're there for them, that you listen to them. Huge thing, listening. We want to be efficient and get things done. You can't be efficient when you're listening to somebody. You just have to surrender the time and listen. And I've learned this it's been a very hard thing for me because I understand I'm a fixer. I'm an efficient person. I want to get things done. And it was Stephen Covey that said, you can be efficient with things, but you can't be efficient with people. And it's our love for our children that allows us, under the best of circumstances, to really be present and listen. So you ask yourself, if my child is uncooperative, what am I doing to put deposits in their emotional bank account? And that's another Stephen Covey term. Another person calls them goodwill accounts. But what investment have I made in my child, in our relationship? Have I spent time with them? Have I told them that I love them? Have I played with them? Even just running around the house or running around the yard. How have I connected with them? Because when my children feel connected to me, they're more likely to be cooperative. So rather than punishing, like, the old timeout chair where they're, punishment separates us. It puts the child at a disadvantage. They're smaller than us until they're not, but we can still whip out the punishments, trying to control the behavior. And there's that word again, trying to control. Or we can, believe this is a good human being who is struggling for some reason. And I'd like to find out what it is so that I can help them figure out what they need, help them get what they need if they need my help, just, to listen and encourage. So I tend to think of, rather than consequences, which are necessary, because when you set a limit about something, the limit stands. And they can get as mad as they want about it. And I know. I understand. I'm so sorry. Well, next week you'll have your car back. It's okay. This week, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to drive you everywhere. I know it's not cool, Mom's, whatever, but it's only for a week, and then you get to try again. So it's very forward thinking, very encouraged. What can I learn from this? With my child, what can my child learn from this and they can carry forward, rather than punishing, which makes them angry at you, makes them, if they got caught doing something, better being sneaky about it. It creates that clash of, well, wait till see what I'm going to do next.
Right.
And it all comes out of being separated. So, that's why I really appreciate the approach to parenting that makes you your child's ally instead of their adversary. But it does take a lot of energy. It takes time. We need support for it, and that's, going back to self-care. Self-care is not selfish. Self-care is the way you take care of your family, by filling your cup so you can fill theirs.
We talked a little bit about how our Catholic faith interweaves with these perspectives, and not to over theologize, but our understanding as Catholics even of original sin is not that we are just so completely wretched and fallen that there's no good in us. Really what I love about the Catholic faith is this understanding that there is within us this echo of the goodness with which we, in the image of God within us as human beings. Yes, it's been marred or broken to a degree, or wounded by original sin, but it's still there, right? And so we don't presume, that's what I'm hearing when you talk, is we don't presume the worst about our child's motives, that they are a wretched person that, it will try to get away with anything. We tend to presume the best, recognizing the reality of our own woundedness, but as well that they want to do good.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really essential, that we recognize that we are wounded. And just imagine for a moment, Mike, like you just knocked over your milk. And I say this, you are so clumsy. I can't believe, now I have to clean this up. God. What happens inside your little soul when I speak to you that way? Do you feel inspired to do better? Or do you feel, I'm a bad person, I made mommy mad, I'm really bad, I don't know why I try anything, I'm just stupid? We don't realize, I think, when our intentions are good, we want to teach our child to be more careful with their milk and not spill it. That's the intention. But somehow it turns into us unloading, probably that's how we were raised, if we made some big mess and we got reprimanded for it, and how that feels internally, and what grows from that sense of being on the receiving end of that. So, Mike, you just spilled your milk again. Like, oh, whoa, Mike, that is a big spill. I'll get the towel and you can clean it up. So here you go, Mike. So we're done cleaning it up. I may help you because you may be little and you're not the best cleaner-upper, but I will help you. I won't clean it up for you.
Sure.
It's really important, not just for milk spills, but other things. I can't clean it up for you, but I'll clean it up with you until you're able to clean it up by yourself. And then it just happens. Like, you don't have to make a big deal about it. It's just like, I know how to do this, so they'll clean up their own messes. But the next piece is essential. And that's the piece that says, so why do you think it got tipped over? Yeah, I saw that. You had it right on the edge of the table. What do you think? Where should we put your milk where you won't be able to knock it over? It's a great idea. Okay, go ahead. Move it in front of your plate. And pour some more milk in there so you have it. All right, back to dinner. What do you feel like then? Like, I fixed it.
Right.
I had an idea and I'm smart. Mom's, wow, that's what allows us to grow and flower as human beings, not feeling like we're dumb, stupid, and worthless. And I believe that is what God does with us. And that's why for me, parenting is such a powerful metaphor. This is my alarm to have us ring our bells outside. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries.
That's why it's such a powerful metaphor.
Well, yeah, because when we, I can imagine, and I'm looking at even my own life and experience as a parent, when we're looking at it like this and examples and, from an objective perspective, I can think about all the times that I didn't follow this model, or gave in to my own impulses, got into the gradual crescendo of yelling, and that never accomplishes anything. But when we even take that to God in confession or in our prayers, and we really examine ourselves, He deals with us like you proposed dealing with the child who's had a milk spill.
Right. And that's the most beautiful thing about reconciliation. There was a woman that used to be at Cliffview, and she and her husband have long since moved on. But I was at one of the presentations that she met, and she talked about the sacraments of everyday life. And they're all in there. There's baptisms, there's water everywhere. Maybe milk could be considered one of those. There's reconciliation, there's forgiveness. So when we mess up as parents and we do yell and we do lose it, again, we are responsible. We have stretched or broken the relationship, then we can go and find a way to reconcile and make things right with our child, because they need to see how that happens. They need to see how forgiveness happens, and they don't learn forgiveness by you making them forgive somebody. They learn forgiveness by being forgiven. And so I think, so again, for us parents, we're forgiven for our mistakes. We can take them to confession, and we can share that love of God with our children by helping them to reconcile, or helping ourselves to reconcile with them.
Well, let's use that whole idea of reconciliation to talk about another issue that was mentioned by parents. It was a sibling conflict. So we've talked a little bit about the relationship between the parent and the child. How about when there's a sibling, or more than or more than others, more siblings in the home, dealing with that in a way that's, I'm sure, connected to this model, but has its own particular flavor?
That's a really good question, because once you have more than one child, of course, you're going to have conflict. Time magazine put out they put out their little monographs, I guess, I don't know what you call them, but a magazine on sibling behaviors. And it was really fascinating to read. And it said the average siblings argue about something about 9 times an hour. Wow. So that sounds about right, So I think one thing we can do for ourselves is just don't buy into the myth that a happy household is just harmonious and polite, and there's no fighting and there's no noise and everything's wonderful. That doesn't exist. It's not a real thing. And just even the reasons why children fight, there's a lot of different reasons that they fight. They might fight because they both want the same thing. They might fight because one is feeling disconnected, either from the parents or from the other one. They might feel just frustrated and anxious and take it out on a sibling. They may be bored and just like to poke the bear to see what happens. I mean, there's so many different reasons why kids will fight. So as a parent, you never know what went on before you got to the room. I mean, you just don't know what was happening. I've heard so many stories of younger siblings, like for sport, like triggering their bigger siblings, and the bigger sibling blowing up, and then it's the bigger sibling's fault.
Right. Oh, yeah.
We have no idea what happened before we came in. So in terms
I remember that there was a comedian who said, parents, are not interested in justice. They just want quiet.
That is so true. That resonates a lot with me. So the thing is to recognize that it takes two people to fight, and no matter who started or what happened last time, they're in the same boat. I have children that are fighting. So helping children to resolve their conflicts is not really possible to do if it's in an all-out war. That everybody has to calm down. And nobody in the history, I just read a quote again for the umpteenth time, that never in the history of calming down has anyone ever calmed down by being told to calm down.
Yeah, that's right.
Doesn't work. So, that takes us kind of just a little segue into a different section, which of the understanding and knowledge is that the way our brains work. And we have our thinking matters, to make it really simple. Our thinking matter, which is the gray matter of the brain, that functions best under conditions of calm and quiet and interest and focus. And then it works really, really well. That's something that we as human beings have that's unique in the world. Common with many other species, like reptiles, which you may smell that I'm coming up with the reptilian brain thing. But the point is, the brainstem, which is the very lower part of the brain, is responsible for keeping you alive. So it's responsible for your breathing, for your heart rate, and for particularly your fight or flight, which is basically a very primitive response to danger, in which your body responds, the alarm goes off, your body is flooded with stress hormones such as cortisol and epinephrine. You are ready to literally fight for your life or run the heck away and try to save your life. And there's some authors who added a couple other F's, like faint and freeze, which are two other common responses to extreme stress. Faint is, literally just pass out and play dead under extreme stress. And you've seen people who've been frightened and they actually fall down and collapse. And freeze, which is the deer in the headlights, just like paralyzed. And we've seen that in our kids. The deer in the headlights is easy to spot. But those are stress responses that, even though initially they may have been to keep us alive and away from bears and tigers, those same hormones are triggered by somebody shouting at us, by somebody making us feel bad, by somebody hurting us, by our perception that someone is trying to hurt us. Even if they're not, if we perceive it, our body responds in full-blown things. And when that happens, your body is focused on keeping alive. It's not focused on thinking. You don't need to look at, that looks like a 500-pound bear. They're not native to this area. I wonder where he came from. You're going to be dead. You do not need your gray matter. In fact, your gray matter is a detriment to that. So recognizing that and knowing that you don't have access to your thinking brain in the middle of a fight is the worst time to try to settle it. And we've all heard, we're going to settle this. We're going to settle this right now. No, not with an optimal solution. Not with an optimal solution. So, the first thing is people need to be calm. And I'm as guilty as any parent is, like waiting, listening, it's going to calm down. I think they're okay. And then the big explosion happens. If you can intervene before the big explosion happens, you have a better chance of working with the children and helping them. And then if everything's out, it's helpful for people to calm down. And then here's the key point, to come back together when you're calm and talk about it. And I'll just use an example. The teddy bear that you guys were fighting about. When everybody's calm, and I'm calm because fighting freaks me out. That's one of my triggers. When people fight, I just go, whoa! So I've had to work on that. But anyway, so there's a bear. So kids, we have a problem. I have one bear, and we have two kids that both want to play with it at the same time. What can we do? Well, she had it first, but I had it. But yeah, I understand. I hear what's happening. I hear you were really mad about that. You really wanted to play with this bear. I hear you, but we still have this problem. So you're always taking it back to the problem. And this is where I think the jumping too quickly to consequences gets in the way of children learning things. Because if you jump to a consequence, you're not as likely to engage in the thinking that will help children solve a problem. Mm-hmm. So you're always bringing it back to what is the problem and what are some solutions that we could try, instead of who did what. And it always comes back to that. Like, the clothes, I'll use my son as an example. Just there's the laundry hamper in the corner and the clothes are like all on by the bed. So, we tried that, I'm not going to wash it. If your laundry's in the hamper, I'll wash it. Well, that didn't work because he wasn't motivated for that because he'll just, smells okay, I'm going to wear it.
Yeah, that's right.
So I said, okay, son, we have a problem. We have a hamper and we have clothes. And I really would like to have the clothes in the hamper so I don't have to pick up everything and wash it as well. I'm still doing laundry for him. And I said, what do you think we could do to make it easier for you to put your clothes in the hamper? He's like, put the hamper here. I was like, I can deal with that. Like, I like it in the corner. My nice, neat, tidy self likes it in the corner behind the door, but you're not using it. So we put it next to the bed, and he probably hit it like 60% of the time, which was an improvement. So rather than, going down the consequence road, which I was trying to get an effective response to that, it's like, well, what actually is the problem here? Let's just look at that objectively, everybody's personality, and say, here's the problem. How do we solve it? So back to the children with the teddy bear. It's like, okay, we have one bear and two children that really want to play with it. What should we do? And see if they give you some ideas. I could play with it first. You could play with it first. I could play with it. You could play with it first. Okay, so there's ideas. We could both play with it first. What else could we do? You could buy us another one. I'm like, that's an idea. Mm. So when I said, even just a little segue here, when I said you could buy us another one, here's our typical response. I'm not buying another bear for you. Is that helping? That's an idea. I don't like it. I'm not going to do that. That's an idea. So it's on the table and they feel empowered. Again, it goes back to that power thing. They're empowered to put their ideas on the table and have them heard. So we could cut the bear in half. We could cut the bear in half. There's another idea. We could take turns. Now, I think that's something we could both get behind. Let's see what we can do about that. So then you go through the process of, let's get the timer that you used to use for timeout. You can get that timer and teach them how to set it. And, just that doesn't matter if it's for 30 seconds, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, but they agree on a time and you teach them how to set the timer and they take turns. And they are most likely to do that because they've been empowered by being engaged in the process. They are in charge of themselves, the timer, they've agreed, they've made an agreement, they have integrity, they've made an agreement, and they're much more likely to honor it. So, you put that all together and you're teaching children tools that they can use in every relationship, in every situation as they grow throughout their life. And children as young as 3, 4, and 5 can learn this. I've seen it. It's pretty amazing.
Wow. I mean, yeah. Some really good tools and perspectives there, because I know a lot of parents deal with sibling conflict and how to navigate that in ways that help them grow through it. And I really like what you said there in terms of, you're not just solving a situation in the moment. You're giving them steps that will be applicable throughout their lives.
And I'm not saying it's easy. I mean, I practiced this one for years. This was a hard one for me because of fighting being a trigger. I would find myself being the one that melted down and going, well, then you're grounded forever. Okay, Mom, collect yourself. Yeah. But what I watched over time was rather than, and I was discouraged because it is hard for a parent to watch their kids fight and they'll say mean things. But to just stay the course and know this is what I would like to see happen. And I watched over the years as they have learned how to do this. And those little girls who I thought would never speak to each other again because some of the fights they had, they are the best of friends. They were maid of honor for each other's weddings. And, I think part of that is me staying out of the way as much as I could, just having faith in them to be able to figure it out, even though I wasn't necessarily seeing any signs at the time that this was going to work its way out. I think it was very helpful just for me to have this perspective, even though I struggled with it. I'm very happy to say that on the other side, at least for us, it turned out okay.
Well, one of the things that you've talked several times about or touched on in this conversation is about the importance of parents, for self-care for parents, so that they, as it said, you can't give what you don't have. You may have somebody out there who's a single parent who has young children and, their only respite is a few minutes in the bathroom,
We're
seeing
lucky.
the fingers coming underneath the door. Any guidance that you could get for parents in those kind of circumstances, how to practice self-care when it seems impossible to do?
I think that's such a wonderful question, and my heart goes out, and my respect is deep for single parents because they are doing such a hard job, and without the support. So I think the first thing I would recommend is that they find support. They find a mom's group. They find a parents group. They just have a friend that they can, even if it's 1 hour a week, we watch each other's kids just for 1 hour so that the other person can go just sit in the car under a tree with the windows open and sip a cup of lemonade or something, just, down. Because we have these unreasonable expectations of ourselves. Like, we know we can't take our cell phone and just go off and never charge it. We know we have to plug it in for a period of time in order for it to work, and we are no different. So, how do you do that? I think for every parent, it's different. I think it's important to find what works for you. And somebody says, well, you could get up 10 minutes earlier. Like, no, I need 10 minutes of sleep. I can't get up earlier. I won't be able to function. So, okay, clearly getting up 10 minutes earlier is not going to work for you. But, to try to find ways to take put drops in your cup. So try to, and this is going to, which children are so great at, is being in the present moment. Just like looking outside and putting your heart out there and see the beauty that's out there, and step outside and feel the wind on your face and take a deep breath and go, oh, this feels so good. Got to carry this. This is my refresher. And as often as you can do that, uplifting books, if you have a scripture, the Magnificat, Word Among Us, it doesn't matter, on something on your phone, an app, something that's encouraging to you. And I find it helpful to have a spot to sit in, or to, lie down in if you have to, but a spot in your house where you can go to feel better. So in that spot, you might put, nobody has but you want to make sure you have some nice music that you like to listen to that helps you to relax and calm down. You might have a photograph of your family having a fun time together. You might have a little thing of flowers, a candle, whatever makes you feel good and cozy and happy in that little spot. And that's your renewal spot. So whenever you sit there, you're kind of setting it up. So, time for me to relax. And so I think that is probably, and really, it literally is up to every parent to figure out. But there's lots of ideas and ways to do that. You can, hug a tree, hundreds of that kind of thing. But do something kind for someone, pat a dog, those kinds of things. But it is extremely hard. And I honestly, I really salute single parents for doing what they're doing. And I would encourage them to reach out and build communities. If you don't have one, make one. That's probably the best way to do it. Just start one.
Mm. Well, the name of your the enterprise is Growing Peaceful Families. I know that from our perspective as Catholics, and really I guess we get this from our fathers in the faith, the Jewish people, the word peace is not just the absence of conflict. It is that concept of shalom. It's more of a fullness. So when you at least in your mind, think about what is a peaceful family, what was it that you imagined?
When I think of a peaceful family, I first think of the parents, and I think of myself, because again, you can't make your partner be peaceful. They may not be in a place right now where they can be peaceful. You only have control of yourself, and it is literally Growing Peaceful Families. It is that peace that surpasses all understanding. It's that calm in the midst of the storm. It's that whole concept, the be not afraid. So much of our parenting, if we really look at our reactions, are coming from fear. And fear doesn't get us nearly as far as love. So just recognizing, when you're in fear and acting from that and thinking, well, what would love ask me to do? What would Jesus do? Or how would Jesus be? And try to move yourself in that direction. But it takes, I think every family needs at least one anchor. And it's not going to be your kids. And it may or may not be your partner. God bless you. And aren't you lucky if it is? But it may be you. You may be it. So your call to that really to our faith. I think that this is a really good call to faith, an opportunity to find not the high in the sky theological stuff, but in the muck, in the puke, in the poop, in the screaming, find God is there. And how can I recognize that and bring that to the situation as best as I can in this moment, recognizing that I'm not perfect. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. So for growing peaceful families, your local organization, what are some resources that people could find in the midst of these difficulties?
There are so many wonderful, wonderful parenting resources available online. I post, we have a Facebook page, Growing Peaceful Families, and I try to, anything I find that I think is going to be helpful, and I post a lot of free classes because I know some of the individuals personally that are doing these classes, and some I don't, but I'm familiar with the material, and I try to post things that I think are uplifting and positive and helpful, and they're free. I have learned as a result of trial and error that I can't provide everything for everybody as much as I would love to. I'm not that person, but I can help people find what they need. Back before the pandemic, then I was offering workshops and classes, which were always fun, doing with the library, churches, schools. It's an opportunity to connect with people. And so I'm hoping to do some of that again, but I'm actually trying to get more familiar with things such as Zoom, so that we can do some Zoom conferences online. And so we have a web page that has events on it, which there's not much going on right now. But I think the Facebook page is probably the most up to date, and then I can refer people based on that to other resources that are wonderful.
Well, I really appreciate your time and expertise, because there's a great need out there, and the spirit that you bring to it is really refreshing. And I appreciate your time, Dr. Iwinski, and pray God's richest blessings on your family and your work.
Pray the same for you, and thank you for the opportunity again. I'm really grateful to be here.
All right. God bless you. Bye-bye.